Well, hello everybody. I want to talk to y'all a little bit about logging your land today. I want to talk to you about creating your homestead out of a marginal piece of ground. Excuse the voice, I'm a little sick. Got the COVID, I think. I tested positive for it the other day. But anyway, we're here on the back side of the goat field, and I had this piece of property logged. It was 11 acres, and I paid $9,000 for it, 2016. And it was probably, as far as land goes, the best investment I ever made. A little bit over $816 an acre is what it worked out to be. Now it's mountainous. It's got over a 50% slope on some of it. It's got a 30% slope on the majority of it, at least. You've got something behind me there. You can't even walk up that hill without zigzagging across it. So it's not worth much. Okay. And right here where I'm sitting was built out of my logging activity. So I put a contract on this land to be logged, and they wanted timber from 12 inches at base, which is anything really, up. But as you can tell behind me, it's been logged. And they was logged last year. They didn't take everything. They don't want everything. They went to the top and they clear cut a little over 1.5 acres, 2 acres. Built me roads all over it. So this property actually does have some road frontage down there. And let me see if I can turn the camera around. But there's my field with the goats in it, and it was already cleared, and it was an acre, a little over 1.5 acres, 1.25 acres, something like that. And it's got road access. We've got a road that goes around on up to the top. This landing I can use to build buildings. Right now I'm using it to store equipment. And I've got access to the remainder of the land. And up on the top, I got about 3 acres of flat land. 2 acres of that, at least, is now cleared. Completely cleared. But what I've got to do is I've got big slash piles like this I've got to cut up or burn. This is all going to go into the wood stove. I'm going to cut that and split it, hopefully this year. Some of it anyway. And then I can actually use this as a building spot. I can have a goat field there, a goat field on top, a road connecting them. I can build a cabin in between if I like. I've still got a lot of woods. I've still got quite a bit of flat land up there. And so I've turned this property into something very usable. And I got paid to do it. And the money that I got paid would be enough to gravel all the way to the top. Or enough to pay for the property. In my case, I actually took this property with 2 others and had them logged, and that was what gave me enough. Normally, you're not going to get a whole bunch of money out of logging. You're just not. It's either enough to pay for cleaning up their mess when they leave, or buying you some gravel if you want to build a road in on it, or paying down a little bit of your land. If I had just got this piece of land timbered, they wouldn't have come out and timbered on 11 acres that's steep like this. They wouldn't have done it without my other land that I included. I let them timber up to 50 acres, and so I got a pretty good return on that. But they're not going to come out and timber your 1 acre lot or whatever. It's just not, the money's not there for that, for them to build a road and come in and do all that. So they have to have some money in on it, right? But anyway, it worked out for me to where I could have this place timbered. If you can work with your neighbor, and your neighbor wants to have theirs timbered, you want to have yours timbered, and you've got a neighbor on a piece of land like this, then good. That's what you do. You know, you get your neighbor in on it, and then you split the check, however, and then you get your property improved, along with them getting their property improved. But you got to make sure that you make the deal you want to have. So, anyway, what I'm just saying is it's worth the investment to buy something that's a marginal piece of land for your homestead to start out with, and get something that you can improve with time. And I actually prefer something with trees on it. I think that, you know, for me, my main interest is goats, sheep, chickens, hogs, that sort of stuff. I don't really like getting into large livestock like cattle. It's just too capital intensive. In a SHTF scenario, you're not going to butcher them. I mean, I guess you could, but it just makes things hard. It's easier to keep livestock on the hoof as opposed to try to preserve all that meat in a SHTF scenario. So I prefer livestock that's live. I prefer my meat live. And it also, they help build your land up. They help create the land that you want. And that field down there was a marginal field, and it's still not great. But I've got, and that's just 3 of them, but got 11 now. But they help build fertility. They help create the field that I need. And so using them on an old log job up at the top, we're going to create a field like this. Now we're going to leave the stumps in place. We're going to fence around all of it. We're just going to let them have a fine time out there. So anyway, if you want to get into livestock and you want to have some property and have a homestead, don't look past the ugly properties. The ugly properties will actually make it worth it. You go buy a 40-acre homestead with no house on it, and you start from scratch building a big old farmhouse that's picturesque and all this stuff. You go spending $500,000 so you can save. Well, you ain't gonna save no money at the store. You're actually gonna pay more for your food in the long run doing this. Now you'll be more free doing this, but you are still gonna pay more for your food. It costs me more to deal with these guys than it does for me just to go buy food, buy meat, you know, or buy milk. It really does. But what's the quality of food am I getting? They're also regenerating my land. So if this is your lifestyle, you can do it on a mountainside, on marginal land, and actually make a better return. With all this equipment going and making haymaking on that 40 acres of mine, it's really not worth it when I spent $500 in hay feeding those goats. It's just not worth it. The juice isn't worth the squeeze. And I can bring in my fertility through the hay. So haymaking is just not, I don't, the longer I think about it, the more I'm against it. It's just, but I've got all the equipment to do it now, and I've got the land to do it. And in the long haul, with the old equipment I've got, it probably will save me some money. But, and it will, because the extra hay I make, all I need is about an acre of hay, and I've got 10. So I can sell the leftover hay, and it'll pay for my equipment and my time. But that's a very unique situation. It's just unique, because I'm making small squares. You know, I may make $3,000 this year making hay, but I've got about $10,000 in haymaking equipment, and it's the old junk, as you can tell. So if I make $3,000 this year, it takes me 5 years. Let's say I make $15,000. By that time, I'll have to spend a couple more thousand. That's probably my break even. It's 5 years. And that's running this old crap. So it's just not even worth it. And that's selling it and keeping some too. I would stay away from it. And that doesn't even count the cost of the land that I had to set aside to make hay. I've got 10 acres I could run goats on. Anyway, y'all have a great one.